Welcome back to Facts Civility. Me know the very done. This is my thing to show. In fact, I need you guys not to be too proudful or pride to like and subscribe and follow. And I want to say, welcome back to the show where the host does the most, and this is called Fellas Talks Backwood Show. And here I go. Your host, yours truly. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. And here he is. If you don't mind to give a round of applause that you give. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. And thank you. And more and more. Love you more. Love you more. Now, I want to say to all ladies and gents, listen, listen. This is an episode that you will never forget if you didn't. Listen, in your past life, come here, have a time of your life, and if you dare, you would know that you were intrigued here. Just know. But today's episode topic, we're gonna only do one topic for today, only one topic for today. And today's topic for today that I might say, in case and for I could say I forgot it. Today's topic is, are race wars related to the Star Wars? Let me say this again. Is race wars related to the Star Wars and Star Wars of the galaxies? Now, a lot of you people don't know where we're gonna go with this, but stay in your seat if you don't mind to take a seat if you can, and just wait and understand. Kit Kat gets no break, and the same goes from every rapper, and same one for my audience from the A to the Z. Listen. I need you guys to listen. I'm gonna give you game. Maintaining that to be is for the mind. Now, what we're going to talk about here is what is going on in our world here. What is going on in society? What is going on that they lied to you just as well as they lied to me? In our mind, and the obstacles of illusion in which we think have been eluded, in which we breathe, everything is not what it seems it may be. And let me give you a second if you let me breathe. Let me give you a second. And please give me a second if you let me breathe. And I'm like, what the hell? Just think, and let me talk for a second. Well, we have so much going on, from the war in Ukraine, the wars, and we on the brink of a World War III. If it may seem populist taking over the global world, and we see, I want everyone to be enlightened by my channels that may be. And so if you can, breathe in, breathe out, and just get with me and understand. The brain doesn't think, the brain downloads thoughts in which it brings. So once you know that everything we've been taught is taught in reverse. The map is upside down, but we're not going to get off the topic. The topic for today is, are race wars initiated by past tense Star Wars, Star Wars of Star Wars galaxies and constellations? Let me say this again. Have present wars or past wars been initiated by the Star Wars of different Star Worlds and the constellations of the galaxies? And the answer for that may be within that you may see, if you may ask when you may speak, is that in which I may preach, to be exact. It's in fact, yes. If you pay attention into the descendant DNA in which we come from, in fact, you would say that we all have derived from a part of the cosmos of the space galaxy, and that awaits us, in which we have so many personality traits that we have not come to face it within its reality of actuality that awaits us, in which it awaits. So when you actually see these things, a lot of things we've been taught has been a fabrication of what is illusion, and which has been made. With that being said, like, a lot of us don't know that our DNA can be traced back to star galaxies and constellations that have paved the way, that are miles and just, if not light years away. Yes, it is true, if not possible, more than possible, definitely way beyond a likely possibility. Yes, as you might see, a lot of things we have been taught in reverse, like a car reversing. You just don't know until you actually take that bump and realize you've been moving too fast without rehearsing. So what we have observed from the observing eye, that's observing in that eye, that we all come from different parts of star galaxies that may give you a surprise, but we have arrived from those galaxies. Whether you believe we come from, we arrived. White, if you want to say the Caucasian female, the Caucasian male, the Caucasian female, if you may say, they arrive from different parts of a certain genetic, if you might say. Some people say, oh, they come from the Neanderthal. Well, maybe true to a certain extent. White peoples come from so many different places, but they didn't arrive until the 14. We're going to break down some things here. You might just say white people didn't arrive until this world, maybe until the 1492, during the great, war within, Europe and Britain. So let's go back into genetics, if I might go into this flow of genetics in which I go and tell you what I tell you and repeating this, because life is repetitive. Well, Caucasians, females as well as males, come from more of a Pleiadian type DNA genetics, which was created within that time of the realm, and when that period arrived within that time, where England was conquered by a I don't even want to get too deep in that. England was conquered by the Moors before that time, and as well, awkward would begin the war on the Moors, and the whites taking over England from the Moors within that time was during the assistance of the Pleiadians and the Draconian reptilian shapeshifters. Whether you believe it, Draconian reptilian shapeshifters do exist. They do exist. They are alive and well. Our nation has been surprised, lied to, jibed to, just as well as surprised fools, because we have been manipulated by so many things in which defines the mind. And the mind is food for thought, if you think food, unless you be fooled and be ignorant too. But however, screw a but however, for that telling, whites also come from a genetic of the Pleiadians, which Pleiadians, let me break this down, if you don't mind me breaking this down in so many ways that go around the world, because circle is a circle that goes around in a life cycle, if you don't know, but you know now. The Pleiadians come from a time traveling dimension, which their technology has mechanisms in which it travels through ultra dimensions in order to get from one plane to another plane. Pleiadians from time travelers within this dimension of Earth. So they come here to check on and aid and assist in all those dwellings, as well as give those they could give gifts, and well as helping with informal intelligence, if I could say that, if I might say. Yes, they come here to assist maybe governments, officials, presidents, we could say CIAs, etc. But Pleiadians have a long history of, intergalactical warfare with our descendants. Now we get into the Star Wars. Like, now let's say welcome back to the Backwood Show. Now we warming up, so maybe I get this back with a little smoke if I can go. If you don't mind, here we go at this time. Light it up! Light it up! Listen, silly rabbit, tricks of my kids. Thank you. Now, if you don't mind. I'm going to do this shit right here. Wow. Now, a backwood show, unless we got a backwood to smoke, You can learn some shit here. I'm going to teach you some shit here. Uplift your frequency. And we not finna bash races here. What we're not going to do is make one race better than the other race. We're gonna break down racism. how did racism get into what we call a me? Now I'm gonna tell you this: racism is an illusion caused by the populace to divide and conquer us. Remember that. So when you know these things, that your mind becomes a weapon within itself to fight the matrix as it has weaponized itself against our health. So if you know these things, then you good as well because it's also keeping your knowledge in your brain instead of leaving it on the shelf. Yeah. So it's just something to think about. So during the war of 1492, the Moors started to notice a lot of weird things. And then they started to notice the same Caucasians they helped turned against them. But we're finna go into repeat and we're finna rewind. And I want you guys to stay on topic with me because I can drift off topic for a bit to keep you guys on topic with it, in which I'm going to relate certain topics for you to understand the topic in which we're about to spit, but we'll spit these topics on that you get what you get. Now, with the Pleiadians, they assisted the Caucasus people because the laws of the universe were being broken by other races as well as others. We're gonna leave it right there, and you guys are finished to catch this. We also broke laws of the universe. Minorities, and key gods, the black people. Watch this. You guys might don't know this for sure. Everything has been taught to you in reverse. We put the white people enslaved first. Go look up and do your research. When you get time, if you get time, anytime if you get time, and have it on your mind to go do this if you find and it's fine by you, well, you will see that we put white and Caucasian people into indigenous servitude. Yes, we did. The Pleiadians, before I go back to the Pleiadians, when we first came across the Caucasians in the mountains, we seen that they were standing not upright. They was walking on all fours. It was some weird shit for us to see. We started to help finish the modification of helping them clean themselves up, vaccinate themselves, clean themselves properly. And doing that, we had the Caucasians agree to help us sell their people into slavery. They don't want to tell you this part of history. Because let me tell you something about life. We have something called the law of karma. Like you people, like us, like some of us that believe in God. I'm not gonna say me, exclude me from that. For some of us that say first you believe in God, we have laws of karma. Pretty much anything happens to you, kind of pretty much is some kind of a law of a vibration of karma. And I used to wonder, like, how did black people get into slavery? Well, we put white people in slavery first because we made the Caucasus agree once we do them a favor, it'd be a favor for a favor. So they agreed to sell their own people into slavery in order to become and adopt certain things that we had and certain teachings and also certain gifts and principles of government and things of that sort of learning to high learning of that concerning as well as earning. These things they wanted to know that were important for their discerning. Or should I say their concerning, as well as discernment. So they started to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. And as they learned, throughout time, their mind became more defined into what it wanted to become, like goals within the mind. It became and it become to the point they were more adaptive. They were more educated now. They were more sophisticated. Then here came the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians. Then their little tag team partners, the Draconian reptilian shapeshifters. They teamed up and looked at the indigenous, and not the indigenous, because white people wasn't indigenous. I mean, when I say insensitive certitude, Remember that. I said insensitive servitude. What I really meant. We were the indigenous, but they were the insensitive servitude in which they were. We have placed them in. So during the war of the 1492, pay attention to the history of white people and Caucasians in the history of America and the beginning, which we know America was discovered till 1700, whatever. But this was the beginning of their history. When it was reversed from we could say England, all the way until when the arrival of Great Britain came, was the reversal of the war with the Moors in Great Britain, all of England to Great Britain. With the Moors was the network between the Pleiadians educating the Caucasus, or we can say Caucasian, which the Caucasians were born. Let me write some on my weed if I can. I don't want to get too fast. The Caucasians, if I might say this, if I'm saying this right in my common nature of saying this, I want to make sure I'm saying no, not longer debating. They were descendants of the Flogeroids. The Flogeroids were the first caveman. You research this on Google. You can pull it up on Google. It will pop up if you have time. White people came from the Flogeroids, the Pleiadians, which we had an earth god named Yaku. Yaku is an ancient god, a black god scientist. He can create anything. He know how to engineer, create things. The Pleiadians wasn't allowed to create things within this realm. Remember, I told you Pleiadians are time travelers. They could time travel with their UFO saucers. They're able to fly into ultra dimensions and fly into time portals. We have stargates, whether you believe it. That's why we're not allowed to go different places in the world, because we can bump into a stargate, a portal, etc. Long story short, the Pleiadians assisted with the draconian shapeshifters into helping this movement come about. And that's when time was reversed, everything was reversed, and we were put into slavery, into servitude. Now this goes back into the wars that I was telling you. Racism. Racism started from star galaxies, where they had that's where the word racism started. It started from radical wars. That's why it's called racism. Radicalism. Racism started from radicalism. That's why they tell you about racism. There's no such thing as racism. It's illusion. That word really originated from radicalism of wars within star galaxies. It was radical wars, meaning wars that have any meaning, because it was just more of a radical movement. And that's more what the Pleiadians came about. They was more a beef with the Anunnakis, in which our descendant DNA gene, the mitochondrial genetic mitochondrial E gene, rise from the black woman that cometh from the mitochondrial E genetic gene that we are describing as we speak. That is the mitochondrial E genetics of the black woman, who is God, Queen, whatever you would say that may be, etc. If you see, well, I say that to say this, we maybe have been misled, jived, if it's said, lied to by surprise of fools we've been to the whole time to. Must I remind you, because we watch TV and we forget, we watch so much TV, we don't see the difference between the TV and who's the TV and who's the brick, who's the stage. It's life a stage, and it's where where is going on. We see movies like Star Wars, and we go and we say, whoa, wait, we don't even click the light switch on to see what we're watching for show, if a show, and then what we know. It's just like a movie, because life is stage. Let me say that. Like back to the Star Galaxies and the Star Wars. Now, racism, broke that down for you, arrived out of radicalism and radical wars within Star Galaxies, especially among the Pleiadians and the Anunnakians. The Masirians more were more a neutral light beings, but the Reptilian shapeshifters took more of the Pleiadian side. Because whenever the Pleiadians went to war, they always had to have an ally. They wasn't allowed. Well, I wouldn't say allowed because they pretty much break in laws. They want universal laws, and you see that now with the government. They break in laws. They was pretty much can do anything without having an ally. Pay attention to the mind frame of the minority of. Well, we don't say minority. We know who's the minority. The majority of the elites. They have to have allies. NATO with America, etc., etc. But long story short, we have to see that everything we see on TV, if not, is real between us. If not, we have been alluded to what has been of illusion of such that we have forgot to make up a big fuss, because this is what's very, very tough of a subject to touch on. It's very weird how we don't notice how we target one another, how blacks are targeted in the minority of the world, but well is this radical supremacy of black supremacy versus white supremacy within a mind frame of the radicalism. What I told you, the radicals, and we have to realize it is a Star Wars of galaxy within our minds of our descendants at war again to make us war within each other within this realm in which we're on. If you don't understand that, then your mind is gone. Now I'm here to tell you, just being honest when I tell you, when not being honest. Listen, how can Future do it if they got problems if I'm honest with you to do it? I'm just telling you the truth. We have to see through the illusion of genetics. That's where we're from. We're from an Anunnaki being. So many times when you tell people, oh, where we're from, they be like, oh, they're fallen angels. And understand our people come from, or we could say our folks, families who come from places where religion was the main part of focal point of family. It was the main focal point of loving one another and culture in which we were brought under, but that have to ride where it comes from in colonism, and you have to go do your research on that when you have your own time. But I'm here to tell you about what genetics rise from. The genetics derives from that we all have different genetics. Mainly black people, we have something called a DEA genetics. The DEA genetic stands for DEA. The E stands for an DEA X chromosome gene, which derives from the X chromosome gene, which is found in the black man, and the mitochondrial Eve gene that is found in the black woman. Pay attention to the word woman derives from warm moon. The woman with the moon, which we've been taught things in reverse. When the first 9 ether beings arrived here to our planet, if you want to say, people that don't maybe believe in these things or sorts, whatever you may want to believe, be careful what you believe in anyway, because the word believe stands to be lied to, because the first 3 letters in believe after BE is LIE, BE, LIE, no, LIBELIE VE. You lied to. Long story short, when we first came here, we arrived on a 9 ether genetic type of coding. Coding meaning our genetics has a DEA. That's what the X comes from in X-Men. It comes from X chromosome gene, in which is found in the black man, and the woman, which time shows that everything we've been told is reversed. If anything, more likely, everything comes from the black woman's real. And that's where the word God, people don't even know the word God derives from the name of our son. Our son, we have two sons. You might don't know these things. We have two sons. Our son that we look at up every morning when we wake up snoring, boring, and just as much as hungry as horny, we wake up looking at this sun here. It's called the God's son. Listen to me. It's called the God's son. Look it up when you get time. And we have a sun on the other side of the world by Antarctica by the gates. When they it open it, I think we're having global warming. The sun is melting the ice. Anyway, long story short, we have another sun, and it's called the Jehovah Son. So how you get the Son, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? Which the Spirit represents the moon energy. The spirit energy is a water energy. It's the energy of the feminine energy. People don't tell you that. That's why you have solar energy, which represents the masculine energy. And it's back to the Star Wars. Well, the Star Wars started from years ago and such light years ago. We trying to understand what a light years is. You got to look up that when you get time. Now, you go back to different planets when you go and look to the ground, when you find these planets, when you manage to look them down and do the research on the ground and the dirt in which it's around, they have scientifically pulled up and found out that there's nuclear wars that have been on every planet within our solar system. Peep this. They found that it's nuclear bombs that annihilated everything on all these planets. Now, what did I tell you about the Star Wars? You watch movies and you see movies like Star Wars, and you say, "Oh, this is a good movie. The director made this up." You silly. You're very silly. Let me tell you that. You know why? In fact, because a lot of things we see are not just by coincidence, indeed, but more than by coincidence, just to believe. It's indeed maybe just a fact. So when I say these things and I tell you these things, I tell you these things that I really say and I say that I mean. A lot of things are not what they may appear to they what in which they may seem. We have been lied to, jibed to, as well as just gave a high five to, like a high fool. And that's just what happens. So when I tell you this, you have to understand knowledge is for those who seek knowledge. You know, I could tell you, I know this, but hey, you be like, okay, well, I could tell you this. You can Google this if you think I'm lying. The moon is 92. No, let me say this. The moon is 238,900 miles away from the Earth. You can Google this, and you can Google that the sun is 92 million miles away from the Earth. Rounded to the nearest 100,000, you now have 93 million miles away from the Earth. This is facts. But what I say these to say these because some things are good to know instead of a person replying, hey, research it for yourself and you don't know and you have to believe someone for them or believe in someone for yourself. It's a difference as well. So I say that to say this. We have to understand misery loves company. And it's a bunch of miserable people universally in this atmosphere within this matrix that are grabbing us by our levitation to separate us in separation. You have to understand it's a war among the space of the constellations and space as well as among our nations. And we have to understand it's time for us to interfere with our mind as a weapon and understand of an obligation for them not to divide and conquer us, but for us to divide the nation. Or more like for us to conquer the nation before we divide ourselves. Before we divide anything, it would be dividing government from our nation as well. But see, we don't understand that everything has a government. The stars have governments. Whether you believe it, the space has a government. The space has a God. The space has the God of the universe. Whether we want to say God is real, I say the God of the universe because we have to be careful what we believe in religion and politics. We have to be careful what we believe in religion and politics because all of this is an imitation of the Star wars, in which we forgot to tell the world we seen when we did, indeed, we did not. But we re-upload thoughts because the brain is a dataware. The brain is a hard drive. And if it's white flash drive, if it's completely wiped out, then you have nothing to reiterate these things. In fact, you need to reiterate to know that your mind is a subconscious of the universe mind. It moves with the universe mind. It moves with the earth. You have a complete universal one conscious download within our minds. So a lot of these things we can download these thoughts and know these things. Let me break something down again. White people are aliens. Black people are extraterrestrials. You're hearing it here first. You're hearing it out of my mouth here first. Let me say this. You're hearing it out of one and only. You're here. You're on me. If you want to see chill with smoke with me, you know where I'm at. If you want to hold, make a show. Me first, for certain. You heard? Now listen. It's a difference because certain people do not get these things. That's why you always hear this certain race that Hitler wanted to create an Aryan nation race, and you have the Aryan nation gangs because they descend from what I was telling you about the Pleiadians with green eyes. Pleiadians more likely have green eyes. They descend from the future time travelers, alien race. Then you have another race that white people descend from, and within the alien race is the gray race, which is the aliens with the big eyes and the big head, short grays. And then you have the Flockaroids, which were the first caveman. Then you have the draconian reptilian shapeshifters, but that's another subject here. But the Flockaroids were the first caveman before the Homo sapiens became Neanderthal. But was the first Neanderthal, yes, and they were the ones that arrived from the Caucasus Mountains. You can research this, who were created by Yaku, who were tricked into creating these cavemen, whatever you would say, by the Pleiadians, who could not create these type of genetics on this earth because they will be breaking universal law, which they was already breaking universal law, telling Yaku to create these beings, and Yaku wondered how to create these beings. He told them about genetic slicing, animal DNA with the monkey DNA, with the dog DNA, and also with his genetics. Which this is how white people had melatonin within their genetics. Black people, we come from a carbon race of extraterrestrial beings. We are extraterrestrial. We come from a carbon race of extraterrestrial, which melanin produces, which shows you within the modern Tangerine Eve DNA genetic periodic chart that which everything and which has melatonin in it comes from carbon. Which is only one race that is a carbon-based race, and that is blacks, the aboriginals, if you will call them, the indigenous aboriginals, meaning they was native to every land. Blacks don't come from just Africa, which is one of the first places in the world. We come from everywhere. We inhabit everywhere. To all my conscious beings and loves and kings and gods out there, we come from everywhere. We were native to Africa, Egypt, America. Everything was actually a one continental land. If not, everything was not real far away from each other, even Antarctica. Now we have to a point we have to realize that we were native to every land because we had lost Atlantis. We had lands that were way a little bit further, a little more away from the main continents of the dry land in which Africa and Egypt and America rose. These lands of the New World form the old civilization of the world in which it derived from. Which we have to understand the wars in which we fight now, from every war we have, is a reincarnation of a war in past contents within a constellation. This is why we have wars between periods, also a manipulation to start fanning, to cause war, propaganda, manipulation. Every time you see war, it's a distraction. It's ours to take. It's just take. Just like when we bully certain small countries for resources, so taking things, and it goes back to the natural laws of the universe, in which whenever someone wanted something, like certain races within star galaxies, they wanted materials within Mars. They went to Mars and they fought other star galaxies, or we could say other star races within their constellations with on that planet for planetary resources and territory, whether you believe it or not. They basically had planet gangland, space gangland. What we had, so put it in mafia terms for those that don't get it. We are into what we consider a matrix. The Egyptians called this the Matrix X, if you may know this or not. So this is just something for you guys to think about. That's where the word matrix arrived from. The word matrix derived from the Egyptians and the Kemetes, which is called the matrix, the matrix. That's where you get the M, the R from, and they put it in the right place. So long story short, you get it anyway. I want you to sit on some of these things. Let me light my weed here if you don't mind. If I do this, for all those that don't understand, I need a right mind at this time if I can do this. Oh, we put this. We gonna talk some shit here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, woo! Ha ha! Woo! I'm back. That felt good there. I guess I'll put that down for a second. Oh, got me hot in the motherfucker. Oh, Jesus. You motherfuckers got me here. Hi! What the hell wrong with you motherfuckers? Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Excuse me about all that. Yeah. Anyway, anywho. Okay. A lot of us have a miscellaneous idea of a grasp of what ideas have been put in front of our head and our mind to be maintained, to manipulate our mind to grasp that we grabbed. It's just we've been bedoozled. We've been bedoozled. Let me say that properly. We've been bamboozled. Okay. In so many ways, we become mind fucked as not slaves. We've been mind fucked. They mind fucked us. Oh Lord. Yes, they have. And you know, I really think about it in so many terms and terminology. Someone like life is a street. If you go straight, when you should make a right, if not a left turn. I think of it in so many ways, and I learned like when I started to play chess that my mind is meant to be somewhere bigger, and how we forget about some things in this realm in which we're in this realm. So many things are different realms. How we forget these things, how we forget life is chess, not checkers. But anyway, don't let me get onto a board game and to a point where I say like our mind has become materialistically trapped into a slave box to a point we forget certain things that matter. Like matter. Time. Time is illusion. Time does not give a fuck about you, and you should not give a fuck about time. We should not work for a slave ass government that does not give a fuck about us, but actually derives into a mind frame of, excuse my French, I shouldn't have messed that up. Excuse that. I don't want to keep cursing because I want to make sure this is properly done here. Because it's going to be some stuff here. We're going to keep this one pretty much, try to keep this one clean, this segment here. But I want to stay on top of here for the foremost. I said that to say this, that we live in a lot of what you would say a matrix. Like everything we've been taught in reverse. Time is really 10 hours in a day. The Egyptians lived on 10 hours of the day. The Mayans had 10 hours in a day. The Incas had 10 hours in a day in their civilizations. Different civilizations. The Incas, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, they all had 10 hours in a day. What we get 12 hours in a day is the manipulation of reverse time and gematria and hypnosis within time. That we're actually moving in a fast forward path, which how the elites are able to predict a lot of our moves and know how we're going to move if we don't actually make our mind our weapon and we quit relying on the weapons they're giving us like guns. Society don't we know we all need things to protect ourselves, but let me get deeper as I tell you as well. We have to realize the mind is actually a powerful tool. When you access your power and your gland, you're actually able to access psychometry, telekinesis, levitation, mind manipulation, matter control. You know what I'm saying? Let me say this again. Levitation, psychometry, telekinesis, mind matter control, mind manipulations. You are able to do these things, you know what I'm saying? Bend reality as you see fit, mind creation, things of those sort. And it's actually been proven in CIA document that they actually have ran into superhuman like beings that they had to, I hate to say what happened, you know what I'm saying, to a lot of these people, but it's actually documented that the CIA ran into superhuman beings that they felt were a threat to society or anyone that was a threat to them, and whichly that only meant certain things for we really know who. A long story short, it is a such thing as telekinesis. People can move things with their mind, and this is known fact that you can read minds. It's known fact. Have you ever said something the same time someone else said the same thing? Now we go back to a lot of things we're being told down these roads. We're being told is to make us jump like a frog that's a toad. And we don't know that we're being told to leap. If so, to leap because we don't know. We don't know. And it goes back to the Star Wars of galaxies within universal laws in which races of the Anunnaki descent are at odds with races of the Pleiadian descent, and the attempt to console the mind of the consciousness which it is whole is God. And Anunnakis come from a god-like planet. They come from a planet called Nabaru. Let's get into that. And I'm going to cut this short. The Anunnakis come from a place called Nabaru, in which it is a stationary, Nabaru is an unstationary planet that travels like a spaceship. It can go anywhere it sees fit as it goes fit because it sees fit. It goes as it cares. And this is a spaceship like planet. And this is what pushing the sun closer to Earth as we enter into a new dimension of solar energy, which the Earth will become a new realm, and it will go into solar energy once we have a new bigger major solar storm flare. Earth returning to a new world, a new realm, in which a lot of people are into odds into getting into the modern tantra and gene genetics. This is why a lot of interracial races mating is going on right now, but which is a diabolical abomination to the universal laws, because the Pleiadians and Anunnakis have different genetics. This is where you get the movies like X-Men. Superman come from a planet called Krypton, where he gets his powers from the sun, but we know the only genetic that can withstand sun on planet Earth and actually get power from it is the minority of the Aboriginal, the black colored man. So that does not mean white people don't get sun energy. White people get their energy from the moon in which they come from. White people come from the moon, the spiritual God. The moon is a spiritual energy. That's why when you go to liquor stores, they say we have chips, food, and we have spirits. Remember that. I've seen it on so many. We have spirits. That's the word for liquors. And you pay attention why they call liquor spirits, because every liquor gave you a different type of personality. Remember, dark liquor makes you do this, clear liquor makes you do that, a certain clear liquor makes you do this, a certain clear liquor makes you do that, a certain dark liquor makes you do that, another certain dark liquor would make you do exact. You remember these things. Now, because they have spirits, it's a water-based energy. And this is why they tell people when the moon is out, don't be a lunatic, because the moon is a lunar energy. Lunar means water-based energy. Why the werewolves will get strong and turn to werewolves at night at a full moon. A vampire couldn't go into the sun at daytime. It had to stay in the night. And that is a reputation of who descendants, who ancestors. Yes, vampires and werewolves were real, or maybe still real. Yes. And the lunar energy represents the lunatic energies. Why I tell people lunatics, because 90% of crime goes up at a full moon. You guys didn't know that. 75% of crime to 90% of crime goes up during a full moon, because it's called the lunar energy, which has been proven. Even cops have said it's crazy. The lunar energy has been proven to make people go more crazy and more, because it's the spiritual energy of the water. And also, the moon is electric monitoring center where they watch every fucking thing. The Pleiadians, the Greys, reptilian, shapeshifters, whatever you want to call them. And it also is a whole bunch of holographic shit going on within our realm. We live in the holographic realm. You see what you're seeing through a holographic projection. My phone is an atom made object, made of matter of projection, in which you see me projecting myself into the view, and electricity wire components built into a system of audio, flash drive, and back to you a projection in which you see me do. That's nothing, because everything in with this universe is also illusions of everything we see. Am I saying everything's not real? No, you are real within your avatar. This is why trees were cut down that we used to be mountains. Our trees used to be mountains. This is why they have a war against trees within the forest, because they connect to the Mycelian network within the ground that's actually real. This is why you go outside and we can no longer see stars like we used to, because the clouds have been created so many into the matrix by all of this technology, so they can keep us into the matrix where we no longer could see the real things of the universe that really matter. But trees really matter. Pay attention. Anything green is actually real. You tell the real things within of this universe by the color in which the frequency, the vibration in which it gives. Every color has a meaning. And that means another story for another topic another day, I would say, in so many other ways, if you don't mind, by the way. But back to the Star Wars. Constellation wars have been among us for years, if not for millennia, for sure. Because we have not caught this, just like we have yet to explore what lies below the ocean shore. Because it is more that goes below the ocean shore that we will ever know for more and more for galore. But until we know these things, then we cannot say what we do know, because it is a lot of things what they would say we may have erased in history that we erased, from lost Atlantis to everything we may say, because everything we've been taught is not what we think we've been taught. People think Egypt is 5,000 years old or 10,000. Egypt is way older than what you may say, in which Egypt predates Egypt, in which they have arrived from the Kemites, which what they were called Kemites. They transcended everything in which they were given his artifacts in ways of living culture, as well as living the way they live, is a difference in which we take society and we steal from one another. We have to go back into the Star Wars galaxies and portals in which we do not see, to the point we are so much into belief where we don't even pay attention to the Anunnakis, to the Neviruans and the Pleiadians and the Assyrians, and that goes all the way back to the Assyrian belt. The Pleiadians only can go so far into time traveling where they're not able to leave the Orion belt. And this is where a lot of envy and jealousy goes among the star and the wars. You get what I'm saying? So we have race wars between one another within our communities. Racist wars. You pay attention, we at a war, it's a war. And you got to go back to everything you see on TV, more likely have some truth to it. So I hope I left a little bit. I really want to make sure I touched on the topics I touched on. Hope you guys enjoyed the show here. I definitely did. Uh, we wanted to make sure we do a proper show introduction before we go, and make sure you guys love me. This is Facts, yours truly. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Let me say this. This is Facts, your one and only. Hope you loved it. Let me say this again. Facts, hope you love me. Goodbye.